Bonjour, fit femme. It is Nathalie Lacombe coming to you today in bed again with the fitness industry, your way of getting inspiration and ideas for your career and your business in fitness to grow in a way that keeps you thriving in what you do. And I know I always say this, but I have a really, really special guest today in our friend Lisa Greenbaum. Lisa is a yoga therapist. She's a writer and educator with over 20 years experience in the fitness and wellness industry. She's the founder of Lisa Greenbaum Yoga Wellness. She has a yoga teacher training school with an emphasis on trauma-informed practices and support for mental well-being. Lisa is also the reason why this is called In Bed with the Fitness Industry. So I'll give a little bit of a story before I bring on Lisa, because people have asked me, they're like, why is it in bed with the fitness industry? So here's what happens. Lisa is a very dear friend of mine. We are traveling together. We are in a hotel and we want to record an interview. And you know how all those hotels have like these giant, beautiful atriums that look great on video, but the audio is horrible because you can't hear anything. And we were sharing a room. So we're like, let's just do it in a room. So we got in a room and then we're like, where should we film it? Well, let's just sit next to one another, which ended up being in bed and closer together. We're pretty much snuggling in bed to do the interview, and there was born In Bed with the Fitness Industry, with the first ever guest we ever had, who is back now digitally from my home to her home. But bonjour, Lisa, bienvenue.
Thank you. Bonjour, Nathalie.
It's not the same, but it's still nice to catch up until we see one another. We will see one another soon in a few weeks in Toronto at the CanFit Pro Global event. But I wanted to have the opportunity to chat with you because there's so much that's going on in your career, in your business. And I think it's a nice, springboard to where we started back in 2019 to where we are now to see how things are going with you. So let's set ourselves up, Lisa, with your boudoir details. You sleep in shorts and a t-shirt?
I do, yes.
And you are a solid sleeper that I really admire. So you aim for a 10:30 p.m. bedtime and an 8:30 a.m. wake up time. Do you get that most nights?
So this is the deal. I'm pretty much in bed. Like, the goal is to get the TV off by 10:30. The whole things you got to do to get upstairs and get into bed. And then most mornings I do get up at 8:30. Now I have that 10-hour stretch in bed. Am I sleeping that whole 10 hours? Rarely.
Okay.
So, one of the things that I have learned is to try to prioritize sleep. And because I don't always get a full night's sleep, if I'm in bed a long time, at least I am rested and ready for
rested.
And I love to read. Here's a little book stash there. But I love to read before bed. So that's why I try to push myself to come upstairs a little earlier so that I have time to read my paper book in bed before.
Yeah. And to utilize which is what the boudoir is meant to be, right? So to utilize that concept of the dimmer switch towards sleep versus, because it's not on off, it's a dimmer switch. And so you utilizing that with reading is a perfect way to do that. Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us in bed. It's lovely to see you. It's lovely. I feel like I sneak into people's bedrooms. So thank you very much for being so generous in allowing us to have a look at you in bed for those that are watching on YouTube. And for those of us that are listening, I would love to know what your thoughts are on how the trends are growing, the requests for these new trends are growing with clients, because the fitness industry is very much going through a transformation and adapting to now how people see their health, which is very likely different than a few years ago. How are you seeing that come up with your clients? Are there trends that are manifesting themselves more than others? What are you seeing as requests, as requirements, as needs in your clients now?
I would say the most the biggest thing that I have seen is a shift from people being concerned with how they look to being absolutely concerned with how they feel.
Hmm.
I think without question, among my clients and my students, and it might be, it also might be a little bit in a lot of like the age group of my students as well, but I've really seen a big shift there. And I think that that's something that I've really witnessed and noticed our entire industry is really starting to shift towards. And I think as teachers, as trainers, fit pros, that we really have this direct impact to create some of that shift when body image has become just so overwhelming. And we've realized a lot of things in the last couple of years, and I think one thing that we've really realized is that some of those concerns, like again how we look, are really immaterial when it comes to how we're feeling. We're stuck inside. It doesn't matter if we have an extra 10 pounds or if we haven't fixed our hair or fixed our nails, but it certainly matters if we have energy to get through our day, if we feel good inside. So yeah, that's definitely one of the big things that I've noticed. The other thing is a real flexibility in how people are training and working out. And for most of my clients, they've shifted out. And granted, I'm a yoga teacher, so yes, I do teach in a fitness facility, but I also taught in yoga studios. And I've noticed that a lot of my clients have gone more, we've gone hybrid because we had to, but my clients have also kind of gone into that hybrid mode where instead of having that one central membership where they're doing everything in one place and whatever's being offered there, because the last couple of years they've kind of been forced to open up their eyes, see what's out there, pick and choose, that a lot of them really like that. And so they're following teachers more so than following a particular brick and mortar space and whoever passes through it. So.
Interesting. And I know, I mean, for somebody like you that's got this much experience, like I described earlier, experience in education and training and just life work related to wellness, for other people who were trained in traditional fitness. So, but you and I both were, but trained in traditional fitness, and it's like the whole concept of mental health and wellness and energetic focus and all of these things can seem really overwhelming. Where do you start? How do you grow your confidence in even talking about sleep and even talking about the energy for the day and talking about these things versus, sets and reps and physical health stuff that we were certified in and trained in?
It starts with self-practice. It starts with turning the mirror back on yourself without question. And I love traditional fitness, and I lift weights and I do cardio and I'm on my bike. I love all of that stuff. It's super important, but the balance has to be there, or it's just, that's the whole part of the wellness piece, right? It's finding that balance. So, and I think,
so where would they find teachers if that's the case? Would that be your suggestion for the self-practice, like to start opening yourself up towards wellness and mental health and all those kinds of things? Where do they start?
So, great question. Yoga is a wonderful place to start. And I say that because, while yoga is obviously, or not obviously, is what we perceive it to be a real workout. A lot of what's happening there is really a work in. So it's really focusing the lens back on ourselves, having some of that stillness and quiet time for the mind to finally start to turn down, like you said, that not an on-off switch, more of a dimmer switch, to kind of start to turn that knob down. And when we have some time to just be still, to step out of, everything that's going on, to step out of that sort of rush for filling up our schedules and trying to get, the money in the bank, and really start to evaluate, what do we love about what we're doing? Are we doing enough? Are we leading by example? So, if we're trying to we're all in the health and wellness industry. We want our clients to be healthy and well, but are we working from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m., eating protein bars in between to try and fuel ourselves? That's not a picture of wellness, right? Sometimes we have to do those things. And sometimes there's periods of our life where we, need to kind of step out of wellness to make ends meet and things like that. But just from a general perspective, how are we mirroring health and wellness for our clients? And granted, like, I think it's funny, like when, the whole, I go to bed at 10 and I get up at 8. I also don't have kids. I have a cat that stands on me at 7 a.m. that wants to go outside. So I kind of roll out of bed and open the window and chuck him out. Like literally, I have a window that doesn't have a screen so he can go in and out. So I do respect that, it all has to match with what's going on inside of our homes and our family and our career. And so many of us are juggling things, but where do you start with wellness? If, really kind of stepping back and evaluating where do you have balance in your life? Where do you have imbalance in your life? And what are some of the things that you can do, some small changes to start to adjust that? So, if you, are really, into traditional type fitness, love cardio, love strength training, that's fabulous because it's amazing. What are you doing to help recover? Promoting with your clients for them to recover, right?
Yeah.
And so it's, go out and tackle all of those things, do the races, do all of the great things that you want to do and achieve. But then how are you helping your body recover? Like what, are you, and a lot of people too end up becoming a little obsessive about nutrition. So are you like extra obsessive about nutrition? Are you balanced around that? Vitamins, supplements, an Epsom salt bath, having that morning, like if you are working 12 hours every single day, do you have a day where you literally do nothing? And I can remember my days of being a full-time fitness instructor where that's what I was doing, teaching 4 or 5 classes, 5 days a week, 1 or 2 classes on a Saturday. And in the evenings, my friends would, my sister would call me and be like, why do you never call me? And I'm like, because the last thing I want to do is talk. I just literally want to lie on my couch and watch TV. And on the weekends, people were like, let's go and do this sport or do that. And I'm like, I'm just going to lie on my couch. Again, that was part of like that bit of imbalance. Like I needed the extra time to rest. So
to rest. I like that concept of recovery. Like the next thing I want to ask you is thinking about, is there a way for them to start to become a wellness ally? And as I hear you speak, I'm wondering if even to your point of leading by example is if you're going to start asking clients about hydration and recovery and sleep and energy and balance and family time and recreation, which is a huge, we talk about wellness, but even the concept of recreation versus working out, the idea of movement for recreation and family time and social health for other things. And so I wonder if to even be an ally, if you're going to start to ask those questions out of somebody else, are you asking them of yourself? Is that like the first place of allyship when it comes to wellness?
That's really what I think. And, doing the work on ourselves, right? So it's, being a yoga teacher, but never actually standing on your mat and just going through the practice on your own, right? Not having a self practice. To getting your clients to do all this cardio work, but you're like, oh, I hate running. Right. So it's, we've got to have that piece to it. But there's lots of ways to kind of make small changes. Like I said, take up yoga if you aren't doing yoga. I really think that everybody in the world should be meditating, and there's no reason why people like to use time as an excuse, but I promise you start meditating and all of a sudden you have more time because you are more present. Your mind's not doing, it's not flipping around going 100 miles an hour. You feel a little bit slower. You're a little more focused. The first decision you make is usually the right one, as opposed to, I have no time because I keep forgetting what I'm doing downstairs and I have to run back up down the stairs 17 times because I forgot my sweater and my keys and my sunglasses or whatever. We've all had these times.
Yeah.
And we're in just such a different time now than we were, not when you and I first started in the fitness industry. Like, there was no social media, there was no easy access to education, to material. If you wanted to learn more about things going on in the industry, you had to take courses. And now, and of course there's tons of courses available, but now it can be just as easy as following someone on social media that inspires you. And there's people that are putting out such incredible content.
And accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if this is something that you want to do, as a fitness professional, if this is something that you feel like you want to bring to your clients and for yourself, and I've always been, I know I want to do this, but the only way I'm going to do it is if I actually learn how to teach it. Which is, one of the reasons why I started teaching body step. Oh my gosh, step aerobics, like all those years ago. That lasted a year and a half until Body Jam came in. That was my program, but I wouldn't do cardio. I will not do cardio unless I had to do it. I had to do it. I had to do it because I had a class on the schedule. I had to go. So if that's something that motivates you, and I know a lot of people, especially in our industry, that that's kind of one of the things that motivates us, then take a course. Figure out how, there's lots of big courses, small courses that you can take just to, teach breathing techniques, teach meditation, learn more about our energy body, to be able to share that with people.
And I can share with everybody that I went into my first yoga teacher training course, of which Lisa was obviously an integral part, going into it just to learn more. So again, it was a professional courtesy to a certain extent, because of my work with Cancer Pro. And I'm like, well, these are one of our partners through this yoga school. Let me go learn more about it. Thought the difference between Warrior 1 and Warrior 2 was like the first guy in the war, and then the other guy behind him in the war was 2, and then maybe 3, there's a guy behind him. But you are someone who never, ever has made me feel like I wasn't flexible enough, physically, energetically, mentally, emotionally, but that I was able to embark on this journey. And so thanks to the support and the coaching and the phenomenal teachers like yourself that were a part of that, I was able to go from yoga rookie. Literally, somebody has done, I don't know, I did 3 yoga classes in my life before jumping into that. And lo and behold, 4 years later, but still had my 200-hour RYT and never looked back, and consider myself a very, very lucky person. But the people who would have met me before, you included, would have been like, what's this? This is crazy type A girl. What do you mean you're teaching yoga now? And now it's such an all-inclusive part of my life. And you are absolutely an educator. So much so that after lots of reflection, you've decided to launch your own yoga school, launch your own 200-hour training program. What excites you about what's happening in education and learning right now in yoga and fitness and wellness that has made you decide to launch this in order to go back to being a provider of that inspiration and that education?
I think I just have so much passion for this industry, and I teach. I'm laughing because I think about the students that I have when I'm teaching just my 1-hour yoga class, and they come to me because we'll be going through class and someone will pause and they'll ask me a quick question about what they think is a quick question about a pose or anything that has to do with yoga, chakra, or something. And 20 minutes later, and everyone kind of stops and looks at me, and I'm like, like they're interested, but like the class flow kind of gets stopped and we end up workshopping this whole pose and then the whole class changes. And so I do it so naturally that I need more than just my 1 hour classes. I need the full day, but I think it's just a part of me. I can't even really articulate it, to be honest. It's really just who I am and what I need to do. And, having taught yoga I've taught yoga asana since the beginning of my teaching career, because I started with body flow, body balance, and those are yoga-based moves. And then I went into yoga almost 15 years ago. And, the cool thing is that there's so many layers to yoga, and I've always been very connected to the fitness industry with my yoga teaching and my yoga practice. And I really think that's because I believe that it just adds such value to every single person who enjoys movement, who enjoys, feeling something different in their body, right? And like you said, you had done 3 yoga classes and then jumped into a training. Just being able to provide a real deep dive in education. And the thing too is that, when yoga first came into sort of the modern times in the fitness world and sort of the early 90s, it was very workout focused. It was very body image focused.
Power yoga.
Absolutely. And that's just one small aspect of yoga. And it's a cool aspect of yoga that you can work out and stay in shape with yoga and get more mobile and all of those great things. But there is a huge component of yoga that isn't always relayed out to the world. From yoga philosophy, yoga really is the original taking care of our mental wellness and mental well-being. That's what yoga philosophy and one of the main texts that we study, the Sutras of Patanjali, is literally, a text that describes how, as human beings, stress overloads us. And that book was written, or a text, it wasn't even written, it was an oral tradition. It wasn't even written down because there was nothing to write it down with. But that's from like 1450 BCE. Like, we're talking like 3,500 years ago. So, the human condition, we talk about how the world is more stressful.
Yeah.
Yes and no, but part of that is just us. So one of the things that is and has been extremely important to me as I was building out my curriculum for my program is being able to share some of this huge expanse that is yoga knowledge in an easy to digest way, not just for the people in my course learning, but for them to be able to go and transmit it to their students, because our students are hungry for it. Like I said, right? People are not concerned so much with what they, what they look like anymore, but how they feel. And yoga can really change that. And when I started really deepening my yoga education, how I communicate in general completely changed. How I taught my other classes completely changed. And so even if you don't want to be a yoga teacher, there's just such a depth of knowledge that I just think every single person can benefit from. And so the other piece that I did with my curriculum is that I created it so that anybody who's interested in any particular topic can take it. So it's a 5-module system, and the majority of the teaching skills is saved for the very last training. So that's where we do sequences and language, so that the other modules are really concentrated more so on the information. And then of course take the other trainings to get to the teaching skills.
And you put it together.
Put it all together and you get 200 hours. But I created it not just with my colleagues in mind and the other fitness professionals I work with in mind, and people who want to be teachers, but with my students in mind. And people, people are hungry for knowledge and they just want to know more. And like you mentioned, people are interested in how do we further our wellness? What are things we can do? And so just
And
trying to
taking
open
ownership in it. Yeah.
that up.
And having that empowered accountability to be able to yeah, just make those decisions and be able to be mindful and purposeful. And I was doing, you were talking about meditations before. One of the ones, and we all we ebb and flow in our personal practice of yoga, of the movement, of meditation, of everything else. And there was a time where I'm like, you know what, I've always worked really well with coaches, and this is a time when I didn't have access to other things in person. And I'm like, let me try something else. And I was following Jay Shetty on Instagram, I think, and started doing his on the Calm app that's 7 minutes. So speaking of time, I'm like, listen, if I can't find 7 minutes, and it's because I was giving away so much wellness and mindfulness, talking about it, day in and day out, and then literally not making the time for me to have purposeful reflection so that the rest of my life can be more purposeful. And so the concept of being self-aware, of being mindful, of being purposeful is one that one of the things that I learned from you. And so one of the things that I'm grateful for that I get to continue. And yes, people would be so lucky to be able to enjoy this training with you. The first module starts in September, right, Lisa?
Yeah, September 24th.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's yoga foundations, philosophy, and history, because we're going to start right at the beginning.
Which may sound overwhelming, but I promise you, Lisa verbalizes this and communicates it in a way that is incredibly accessible. And there is continual growth and reflection opportunities in between those modules. So highly, highly recommended to anybody who's looking to grow in terms of that. Let me ask you, as we close off today, it's already done. As we close off today, looking into the months to come, looking into how perhaps 2022 will close off, what are you inspired by? What do you see around you that you're like, that's just so cool? I'm happy and grateful that these things are happening. What are your areas of inspiration?
I'm definitely happy and grateful that we are back to, almost regular life again in the industry, and seeing people and being able to teach people in person. That inspires me. But I think, we as an industry, we have had to go through so much transformation in the last couple years. And it's continuing, of course, because it's not, things are still transforming and changing a lot in our industry right now. And I have just seen such creativity come from people. I have seen so many people finally kind of pull that Band-Aid off and do the things that they wanted to do and felt they couldn't do, and just were like, well, just gonna do it anyways. And so I've seen a lot of my colleagues and people that I just admire from afar just go and do that. And so that's really what's inspiring me at the moment, is just continuing to see all this creativity come through, and more people really, going into business for themselves, and seeing how, not necessarily like I think, just as far as like health clubs, recreation, we need employers to employ us, but just people, individual fit pros taking more autonomy around their
that's a great
career,
word.
diversifying. That's more the aspect, not just, well, we're all going to be solopreneurs, but still kind of working in different avenues. But really, just really, I think that's it, taking autonomy for our careers and just getting really creative with what we can offer and who we want to work with, and doing it in a way that feels right and feels good and feels balanced.
And authentic. I love that word, autonomy. Thank you for sharing that. That is inspiring. And as you are with your new program, that inspires me. I'm incredibly proud to see that. I can't wait to hear how the first cohort is doing as they go through the program. And hopefully during your wellness modules, if I can get my buns to Toronto and enjoy some of that, I will absolutely be able to be there with you. Thank you so much, mon ami, for joining us today. I really appreciate your generosity generosity of time and of spirit. And I look forward to seeing you and squeezing you in a few weeks. I'm a big admirer of yours, and I'm grateful for everything that you offer, that you've offered myself and that you offer others. And thank you for being your true, authentic, autonomous self.
Thank you, Natalie. So much love for you.